So I want to talk to you about piecewise function that actually is pretty useful in the real life situations. Let's start with something really simple. Let's say that um, f of x equals uh, f of x equals to x if x is, say, uh, greater than or equal to 0. And f of x equals to negative 2 if x is smaller than 0. Okay, if I graph this piecewise function, notice that f of x equals to x, in other words, y equals to x, if and only if x is greater than or equal to 0. So when x is 0, y is 0. When x is 1, y is 1. When x is 2, y is 2, and on and on. So this is for the so long as x is 3, 4, so long as x is greater than or equal to 0, f of x follows, or the height of the graph equals to x. Okay. Now, what if for the negative values of x? For the negative values of x, x must be smaller than 0. Okay. So let's say when x is negative 1, choose a different color. When x is negative 1, y is negative 2. So it's here. When x is negative 2, y still is negative 2, negative 3, negative 2, negative 4, negative 2. And so the only thing here that I need to make clear from my graph is that x cannot be 0. X always is smaller than 0. So I do have small hole right here, empty hole for that. This is an example of piecewise function, or you can call it band apart function. It doesn't matter what you name it. So what is important in here is to pay attention to the restrictions. Like for f of x equals to x, the restriction is here, x greater than or equal to 0. For f of x equal to negative 2, the restriction is here, that x must be smaller than 0. Let's do another example. Suppose I have f of x equals to, let's make this 5 if x is greater than, say, negative 2. F of x equals to x squared if x is, let's say, between negative 2 and positive 2. And let's say f of x equals to negative 1 if x is greater than positive 2. Okay. And the question simply is going to ask us to graph this. Okay. And I'm going to try to be careful with my, so I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you really, it doesn't matter which one of them you start with. Notice that f of x equals 5 if x is, I made a mistake. I apologize. I better make that smaller than -2. F of x smaller than -2. So if here's my -2 and f of x is 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come -2, and this is going to go like this. So for the values of x, any values smaller than -2, f of x, or the height of the graph, is simplified. Between, for here, between x, between -2 and +2, I just have a parabola of x squared. When x is 0, y is 0. When x is -1, squared is 1. And -2 gives me 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And this looks like this. And I have to be careful that my endpoints are included. So this is a full circle in here. It's not empty, it's full. Okay. What happens if x is greater than 2? Then f of x is -1. So I have -1 for my height, and there we go. For any values greater than 2, I have f of x equals to -1. And let's just, for the sake of discussion, do one more example. Suppose if we have f of x, I didn't want to have red, black. Okay, so let's say f of x equals to, let's make it this time just 1, simple 1. If x is smaller than, let's say, -2 again. And let's say x squared is f of x equals to, this times minus x squared, if or when x is between, the reason I'm picking -2 and 2, because my, the iPad that I'm working with is fairly small. So I don't want to, run out of room. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Really, there's nothing special about -2 and +2. And let's say f of x is this time minus x if x is greater than 2. Okay. So now let's graph this. So here's x, here's y. And for the values smaller than -2 for x, so here's -1, here's -2. For the values smaller than -2, f of x is just +1. And so I have a hole in here because -2 is not included. Between -2 and 2, I have minus x to the second. So -2 gives me -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. -1 gives me -1. 0 gives me 0. 1 gives me -1. And 2 gives me -4. So, and the int is, I don't have a hole, it's included. -2 and +2 is included. And let's say after, for the values greater to the right of 2, I do have -x. So like, for example, when x is 3, okay, I'm at -3, 1, 2, -3, 4, I am at -4. So -2 is not included, but the numbers really close to that are included. Let's say -2.0001. So, and this is going to go like this. And of course, I'm just using my iPad, so it doesn't look really pretty, but if you use graphing paper, it'll all look good. Okay, at this point of our class, we won't do much with piecewise functions, except learn to graph them and maybe read some little information off of the graph. I hope you find this video helpful. Thanks.